Good morning, and welcome to our Zoom worship service. We preface our service by acknowledging that the land on which our homes and our church were built was not uninhabited when European settlers arrived here with their ideas of conquest and ownership. For those of us who live in Moscow, Pullman, and other nearby communities, we live on the ancestral homelands of the Nimipu, called Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders, the Palouse, and the Chichumsh, called the Coeur d'Alene. If you're joining us from another place, I encourage you to discover who inhabited or moved through the place where you now live in the times before colonization and genocide, and where those people are now. We pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was stolen, ground that cries out for justice and for responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and to all her peoples. And now let us join our voices together for our words of welcome, unison chalice lighting, and song affirmation. Whoever you are, wherever you have come from, whatever your beliefs, whomever you love, and however bumpy your life's journey, know that you are welcome here.
Hi, I'm David Nelson.
I'm Nancy Nelson.
And I'm Kate Nelson.
In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung in every land by every tongue.
Good morning, and welcome to our first experiment in asynchronous worship. See, I'm not actually present in this Zoom room with you. I am at PCEI leading a masked and distanced, much briefer in-person worship service. Pandemic ministry has pulled forth a lot of creativity and flexibility from me, from the rest of the staff, from the congregation as a whole. One of my mottos is Semper Gumby. It means always flexible. Remember Gumby, the green guy from Saturday Night Live? So we're trying today's experiment because the same principles that guide our building project, accessibility and radical hospitality, point us toward the truth that there are some people for whom this format, Zoom, isn't accessible. We don't want them to feel left behind or forgotten or unwelcome. So we're trying to find ways, especially now that many of us are vaccinated, so that we can be together in person in ways that are safe and ways that work for people for whom Zoom just doesn't. But it is a change, one of many we've already weathered, and you know there are more in the pipeline. The difference between a change and a transition is that transitions impact our identity, our sense of who we are, and how we do things. I know that I spoke briefly about transitions and the work of William Bridges back when we had our service to honor the Yellow House, but I keep circling back to it, possibly because of the multiple transitions I'm weathering in my personal and professional life, but also because I found it really helpful to apply this lens to some of the huge societal and global transitions that we're in the midst of collectively. Whether we're talking about the transition from capitalism to a sustainable economic model, or the transition from a world shaped by systems of oppression to one with a more just and compassionate way of being, or the transition from being a primarily agricultural nation to one where farmers and ranchers make up less than 2% of the employed population, or the transition from a world of one temperature to one that's 4 degrees warmer. Everything is changing. And as a nation and as a species, we're living in that mushy, uncomfortable place between what was and what will be, the dreaded neutral zone. So today's service, both this one on Zoom and the one at PCEI, will circle back to William Bridges' work on transitions and look more closely at the techniques and strategies and practices that help us survive and thrive as we move through transitions. Come, let us worship together. And let's begin by singing. Our meditation today is by my colleague, the Reverend Jane Rani Jepka. And she wrote it back in the 90s when the transitions that she was looking at, the particular transition she was looking at, was a little bit more gentle than some of the ones we're facing today. But still, I think it's an apt meditation. So take a couple deep breaths, center down, and open your heart to these words. I spent some time this weekend with an old friend, a dentist. She's considering buying her own practice, but wonders if she could retain the current patients and attract new ones. She wonders if the office staff would like her or befriend her too much, or resent her or desert her. She wonders about bill collecting, spending too much time on crowns and root canals, which she likes, at the expense of oral surgery, which she doesn't. She wonders about being a good wife and mother and all-around person. She's scared. My friend is intelligent, well-organized, energetic, terrific with teeth, but scared. It makes me think we all are. Scared we'll lose the company's big Formica account, scared we'll miss the time change, scared we're handling the kids' curfew wrong, scared our money will be in all the dumbest places when tax laws change, scared of our failing health, scared of everything falling apart, scared that nobody really loves us, scared of the fragility of all creation, scared. O Spirit of life and love, we aren't the giants we'd like so much to be, and the world can loom so large. When all is quiet and we are small, and the night is dark, may we hear the tender breathing of all who lie awake with us in fear, that together we may gather strength and courage to live with love and kindness and confidence. Let's rest in the silence for a moment together.
When you wake and feel the day's already gone, the sun is rising but your faith is going down, and you're losing hope a change gonna come. You gotta tune your station to a higher sound. When the way seems blockaded and you just don't have the might, give some praise that you're frustrated. No, you ain't wrong, you're on the edge of something right. Take a small, sweet step, give it all you got. Just a small, sweet step, moving forward. You don't know what's next, and nevertheless, take a small, sweet step, moving forward. When you're riding and the fog has got you blind, remember you're the sky that holds the clouds. Born with a hero's heart and a monkey mind. On the planet of commitment, there is no doubt. So when the way seems blockaded and you just don't have the might, give some praise that you're frustrated. No, you ain't wrong, you're on the edge of something right. Take a small, sweet step, give it all you got. Just a small, sweet step, moving forward. You don't know what's next, and nevertheless, take a small, sweet step, moving forward. And you know you got to be crazy to look at the game and think you're okay. You're in the very last minute, the very last play. Scoreboard's not on your side, but aside, your heart is a beat. It's a song on your tongue and the dance on your feet. You came here to bring to the game what you got. Win or lose ain't never the prize. You got to take a small, sweet step. Give it all you got. Just a small, sweet step, moving forward. Keep on moving forward. You don't know what's next, and nevertheless, take a small, sweet step, moving forward. Come on, keep it moving. Take a small, sweet step, give it all you got. Just a small, sweet step, moving forward. You don't know what's next, and nevertheless, take a small, sweet step, moving forward. Just take a step, keep moving forward. Just take a step, keep moving forward. Just take a step, keep moving forward. Just take a
Our reading this morning comes from The Way of Transition by William Bridges. He writes, "It's a paradox. To achieve continuity, we have to be willing to change. Change is, in fact, the only way to protect whatever exists, for without continuous readjustment, the present cannot continue." Even the great conservative Edmund Burke realized this, for he said that a state without the means of some change is without the means of its continuation. The refusal to change will not guarantee that whatever we care about stays the same. It only assures that whatever we care about has been deprived of the very thing it needs in order to survive. Disenchantment is built right into human development, just as withering and decay are built into nature. Each of us lives in a world, and that world is meant to dry up in its time like a withering flower to make way for the growth that follows it. Lacking an understanding of the process, we are depressed and discouraged when it happens. We say that things aren't going well for us. We look for ways to fix our problems, fix things, and get our lives back on track again. Of course, back on track means back on the track they were on before we encountered this difficulty. And that means back into the life that it was actually time to let go of. Now, I am not claiming that our lives never need repair or that every difficulty is a sign that developmental disenchantment is at hand. I'm just saying that our active minded, mechanistic culture is highly alert to the need to fix things and very oblivious to the way that problematical life situations can serve as signals to alert us to an imminent transition. Most of us have been raised to define courage as the emotional fortitude to hold fast during difficult times. But the courage that is often called for is the courage to let go. You've probably heard it said that people resist change. Maybe you even agree. But actually, if you think about it, our lives are constantly changing. We change where we are, what we're doing, who we're doing it with, and we change it almost effortlessly. We respond to the situation as needed. Transitions are changes that impact who we are and how we feel. They're shifts in our self-understanding or identity. Really, they're transformations, either big or small, in our way of being human. Now, on a societal level, we're in the midst of multiple transitions. Environmentally, we're bumping up against the amount of destruction our species has caused through overconsumption, climate change, mass extinctions, the depletion of natural resources. If we can't collectively choose to transition to a more sustainable way of being, the planet's going to force the transition on us, and we'll have to witness and metabolize unimaginable suffering. That reality is very much in our faces here and now as we deal with the smoke and the heat. We're also just past the 1 year anniversary of George Floyd, so it may be that we're in the midst of a national reckoning as well, finally facing up to our history of white supremacy, white settler colonialism. So we may be in the midst of a transition away from structures of oppression and toward or to the beloved community that we dream of and work for. Now, I've also been thinking about the political mess we're in through the lens of transition lately. I'm wondering if part of what we're seeing is a reaction to some economic transitions. Two in particular, we used to be a primarily agricultural society. In 1840, the agriculture industry made up 70% of the American workforce, and now it's more like 10%. That's a huge shift. And then there's manufacturing. Between 2001 and 2009, fully a third of manufacturing jobs vanished, moved overseas, or automated. There have been wiggles in the trend line, but overall, that line in terms of manufacturing jobs is heading down. And the manufacturing jobs, along with the tax structure put in place between World War II and 1985, is what allowed for steady growth in the middle class and an improved quality of life across the board. When the jobs go away, that gap between rich and poor gets bigger all the time. Now, these two things taken in tandem, you'd think they'd lead to radical economic reform, and likely someday it will, but we've done this weird thing here in the United States where the culture recognizes lack of prosperity as a moral failure instead of a systemic one, so a personal moral failure. People who are struggling then can't admit they're struggling. What are they going to do? They blame the other. They blame immigrants, welfare recipients, liberals, Biden. So I think part of what's going on is an unskillful navigation of a transition in our national economy. And then, of course, there's the pandemic and all of the changes and transitions that we have to deal with in face of a global pandemic. I'm thinking in particular on this day where we have our first asynchronous service about the changes and transitions in how we do church and worship, but really it's everything. Everything. How we gather, how we function, how we move around in public, how we see other human beings, how we relate to one another. It's a huge transition, huge transition. Now, I know I've talked about William Bridges before, most recently when we were celebrating the Yellow House, but his work is just so good, so good. He's written 3 books: Transitions, Making Sense of Life's Changes; Managing Transitions, Making the Most of Change; and my personal favorite, The Way of Transition, Embracing Life's Most Difficult Moments, which is more of a personal memoir he wrote after his wife died. What Bridges teaches is that change is situational. You lose your job today and next week you're working at another job, or you live in one town and then you move to another. But transition is psychological. Transitions touch who we are. They're changes in our outer circumstances that impact our inner reality. Each of them involves letting go of things that are important to us: identity, stability, security, familiarity. Letting go of those things is scary. Now, when the pandemic started, we transitioned to online church. Now we're transitioning to what comes next. The technical situational changes involved in each of these pivots are just the tip of the iceberg, because the deep work lies below the surface as we transition our ways of building and sustaining community. I suspect that most, if not all of us, are also weathering multiple transitions in our personal lives. The kinds of changes that lead us through personal transitions include things like changes in marital status, like a marriage, a divorce, a separation, or the death of a spouse; changes in professional status, like job loss, promotion, retirement, or a change in responsibilities; changes in physical status, injury, illness, weight loss, weight gain; changes in family status, birth of a child, gaining a family member through marriage, a child leaving home; changes in living status, a move to a new town or just a new home; changes in habit, acquiring or addressing an addiction. Now, as those of you who know me are aware, I've got a bunch of transitions going on in my life. I just left a 28-year marriage. One of my kids got a job and moved out. The other 2 are trying to fledge, so the empty nest is on the horizon. My grandmother died just a month and a half ago, and my 2 sisters have had 3 babies between them in the last couple of years. So there's a generational transition happening in my family as well. And it is a lot. It's a lot. To be honest, sometimes I'm not sure I know which end is up. One of the things that's helped me, though, is to remember that while I haven't weathered these particular transitions before, I do know how transitions work generally. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know how to do it. Every transition starts with an ending, a letting go. So 2 big things I try to remember about good endings. One is that it's important to take the time to mourn losses, and that saying goodbye is about saying thank you. So we really have to let ourselves grieve. And when we're grieving, grief is in charge. We don't get to decide. We just have to go along for the ride. And then another thing, it's important to define what's over and what isn't. Some things in transitions are gone forever because they were bound to a particular time and place, but not everything ends. Some things just transform or adapt or feel different or are different in the new situation. Bridges talks about there being 5 different elements to a natural ending experience: disengagement, dismantling, disidentification, disenchantment, and disorientation. To disengage is to separate from the place, relationship, job, or whatever is ending. This is an outwardly visible process, the facts of the ending, as it were. It involves separating ourselves from what was familiar and known. Dismantling is more of an internal process. We have to take apart the old habits, attitudes, and behaviors. We disassemble ourselves so that we can put ourselves together in a new way on the other side. Disidentification is about letting go of the old identity. We tend to get very attached to our description of ourselves. Because major transitions involve a change in how we self-identify, it can be really tricky work to do. Disenchantment is a process by which we let go not just of what illusions about how great it was or how great it could become. We have to let old dreams die. Before new dreams can be born. We take off our rose-colored glasses and accept this last chapter as it was, embracing reality and letting go of our expectations or hopes. The final stage is disorientation. It's normal to feel unsteady or strange in the midst of transitions because we've lost a lot of important moorings or anchors. The familiar is gone and we're entering strange territory. And that strange territory is known as the neutral zone. I hate the neutral zone. It feels itchy and mushy and like I'm wearing the wrong sized clothes or living in someone else's house. That said, I've spent a lot of time in it. I've been here before. In one memorable year, I had a baby, moved across the country, started a new job, and we bought our first house. And then just 2 years later, I had another baby, got ordained into the ministry, sold that house, bought another one, start a new job, crashed and burned, had a hysterectomy, sold the second house, moved again, and became a stay-at-home mom. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty ugly. But I survived. And more than that, I emerged on the other side of each transition wiser and stronger and more resilient. So here's what I know about surviving in the neutral zone. It does feel awful, but there is no going around, over, or under it. There's no getting out of it. You just got to go through it. The pathway that makes it possible to do that appears just one tiny bit at a time. The rest is shrouded in mist and mystery. In other words, I never get any advance notice. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's on the other side. Clarity comes in these tiny, small pieces. What's the one next right thing? The one next right thing. I know that I'll not be as functional as I'm accustomed to being. The neutral zone, according to Bridges, is a period of lowered productivity and diminished feelings of competence. Is it ever? I also know it doesn't last forever. I mean, it sort of does last forever because one transition tends to lead into the next. We're either growing and changing and transitioning or we're dying. But each individual transition has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I usually realize I've gotten to the end in retrospect, though. There's no sense of crossing a finish line. It's one day I look back and I just say, oh, this one particular piece doesn't feel weird anymore. It feels like it fits. It feels right and good now. I know that structure helps, that having routines and practices makes the discomfort of the neutral zone more bearable. But I also know that those structures morph over time. So that I need to keep paying attention, keep checking in to my inner wisdom, and it'll tell me, what do I need now? What do I need next? What do I need now? What do I need next? So remember those 5 stages of ending: disengagement, dismantling, disidentification, disenchantment, and disorientation? Each of those 5 stages of ending has its counterpart in the new beginning. We disengage so that we can engage with our new reality. We dismantle so that we can put ourselves back together in a new way. We let go of some aspects of our identity so that we can claim new ones. We release one set of dreams so that we can weave something fresh. In other words, transitions are a process of putting new patterns and habits in place bit by bit, feeling our way. It takes a lot of experimentation. There are usually a lot of failures, a lot of missteps. So when we're in that transition, we need to give ourselves and one another lots and lots and lots of grace. One other thing, those 3 stages, the ending, the neutral zone, and the new beginning, they're not linear and nice and neat and tidy, one after the other. We flow In and out of all three, we go from the ending to the new beginning, to the neutral zone, back to the beginning, back to the ending. It's really chaotic and messy. But eventually, we get through it. If we do the work, if we work at making a good ending, we tolerate the discomfort and ambiguity of the neutral zone and give ourselves enough time in that strange territory to create the foundation we need for our new beginning. A good dancer friend has said to me that the key to being a good dancer is to have a strong core but soft knees. I think about this in terms of transitions and, the strong core, that's the dedication to self-care and spiritual practice, but also a commitment to the values that run through our faith and through our lives, commitments to compassion, kindness, justice, collective evolution, collective liberation, radical hospitality, love. Those soft knees, for me, they represent sort of don't sweat the small stuff. Stay flexible, semper gumby. Stay light on my feet. Be ready to pivot and move and go with the flow. One step forward, one step back isn't a failure. It's just a cha-cha. Beloveds, we have some bumpy ground yet to travel. But our destination is so very beautiful. And I don't just mean what it'll be like when we figure out multi-platform church and when our beautiful building is completed. I mean the world we dream of, the world where our values are fully realized because of who we are and what we did. I'm still imagining the transition, the other side of the great turning, the world where all children grow up safe and loved and free, and where we're able to live in harmony with one another and in balance with the natural world. We'll get there. We will get there. But may we dance our way there through all of the changes and transitions that life asks of us. May our dancing be full of joy, and may we remember that the end of all of our dancing, all of our journeys, all of our transitions, the end point always is love. So be it, and so may it be.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow with the wind, let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance.
Today's closing words come to us from Marge Piercy. I saw her dancing. Nothing moves in a straight line, but in arcs, epicycles, spirals, and gyres. Nothing living grows in cubes, cones, or rhomboids. But we take a little here, and we give a little there, and the wind blows right through us. And blows the apples off the tree, and hangs a red kite suddenly there, and a fox comes to bite the apples curiously, and we change, or we die and then change. It is many as raindrops, it is one as rain, and we eat it, and it eats us, and fullness is never and now. Please join me in extinguishing our chalices with the words shown up on your screen. We extinguish this chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again.